grass and watch the
One of my favorite memories is probably like around COVID time. I don't remember if I approached him or if he approached me, but I was also just particularly kind of lonely and bored at that time too. But I mean, nature specifically had been like really interesting to me, and I wanted to like dive into that more and like find out like, it was just really cool. Like I loved going on hikes and everything, and somehow a backpacking trip got brought up, and like that was something that I had never done before, and I was like, that sounds super cool. Like I would think of like, I remember hearing about it and like hearing it described to me because it was something entirely new to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is basically what they did in Lord of the Rings. This is so cool. Like I would love to do that. So yeah, we went out for, I think it was like just an overnight, like it was an out and back like overnight thing, but it was awesome. It was a beautiful area. It was super cool. And it was also just nice because like, it was just an entire day just spent like walking in nature. Like neither of us had like headphones or like our phones didn't work at all. Like we were in the middle of the mountains or something. So that's probably my favorite memory of him.
That's awesome. So just the two of you?
Yeah, just the two of us. Yeah, it was super cool.
Where was it at?
It was through I think it was by like an Appalachian Trail, I believe. I know it was in Pennsylvania, but it was right around that area, I believe.
So you drove there?
Yes. Parked our car. Yeah. I think we ran into a park ranger right before we did it too. So, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Any bears?
No, I might have heard some during the night. I think that like I remember falling like we had both brought tents, and like he had set his up, but I was like, I kind of want to fall asleep under the stars. This is like super cool. This is like, I don't know when I'm gonna be able to do this again. So I fell asleep, and I think like around like 2 or 3 a.m. I heard something like that sounded decently big, moving around. So I was like, I think I'm gonna go to the tent for the rest of the night. I think the biggest thing that I've learned from my dad isn't even something that like he's necessarily showed me. It's just from like watching him interact with like me, other people, like my mom, like the rest of our family, like that it's always worth it to make time for people, and like in a very like to the point where like that like you never feel like it's a burden or anything. To like, I feel like that's something that would do really, really well, is like, especially like before when he was like always at work, he would always come home and he'd always be really easy for him to interact with us no matter what type of day he had. And like even as our like schedules got busier and like there was more stuff going on and he had to like drag people around, he had to go to meetings, there was always like, I could always talk to him about random movies or like something funny that I saw. It was super easy to have a conversation with him. I also remember, this is a really impactful memory for me actually, like a couple months ago, I had been like through just kind of like a rough spot, and I was really kind of like, I don't know, I needed something. And this was like at 11:30 at night, and I'm pretty sure, I remember thinking this afterward, that I had heard him talk about how like kind of like hard his day was like a couple hours earlier, or maybe I'm misremembering. I know something annoying was going on, and like it's like 11:30 at night, and I just like started talking to him, and I think we stopped at like 2 a.m. or something, and it was like a weekday. So like work the next day, school for me, like, and like routinely he has to get up at like 6 just to take out the dog, let alone make sure my brothers are ready for school and everything. So that was something that I feel like really showed me what it looks like to make sure that you're taking care of people and make sure they know your importance to them. Something else that's really cool is just all the random like stuff that I've seen him make for, like he does woodworking a lot, and it's really cool like seeing him like handcraft these beautiful like tables, cutting boards. Like I remember making walking sticks with him as a kid. It's super awesome, and it's super like unique, and like it's really personal too. Like I remember getting one that like was kind of like the grip part for it was kind of like made into like the hilt of a sword a little bit, like, and it was super cool. It was super cool, and like as a little kid, and then like a little outline of like a blade on the stick. It was awesome, and like even though he would like make other ones for like my brothers and everything, it was really nice because it felt like mine was personal like to me, and I know like all my brothers felt the same, and I know all the random other stuff they made. Like, there's a coffee table in our living room. I know he made a cutting board for my aunt and uncle. I know he made so many other things that I'm not even thinking of right now, but it's super awesome. It's super cool to see.
So my dad was a musician. He was a pastor. We lived in the Midwest, and so he would do these little church concerts. And my mom, who's still a great piano player, and would accompany him. And he would, when we got a little older, he'd work us in. But I remember I was the youngest, so I would often be just kind of sitting and watching, and it's a very strong impression. It made it easy for me to find a love for music, which I still have, and for using that in ministry, which I've done throughout my life. But also just as I've gotten older, there's new things like I have a couple of tracks and songs that I've seen my dad perform a ton of times, and I still can hardly pull them off. Like they're just now I appreciate. Then it was like, that's my dad. This is cool. And now it's like, wow, he was good. Like he was naturally gifted in ways I didn't appreciate until I got older. But yeah, that's a really strong memory. And obviously there's a lot of other ones that comes to mind early, because I just feel like that I still carry with me on a regular basis, and something that we still enjoy and talk about. And so to just pull one thing, so my dad's a little quirky. All of us are a little quirky. My dad's more than a little quirky, maybe, but and that I learned that that's okay. I learned that it's fun, and not only that, but that I learned that that's something I embrace too, and in a really practical way, it started me in life with an idea that you look at things from a lot of different angles. You find the other way to do it, or that problems have an infinite number of solutions, and that there are a lot of things that if it's hard to find a way to fix it, or to have somebody else, you can usually figure it out. And he was great at solving things, helping the house, kind of fixing things around the house, and but also just how to look at the world around you from more than one angle. And I think that has been really important to me. When I'm on teams, that's just my natural tendency now, is to think that way. And I have a memory of, and I don't know how accurate it is now, but it's definitely a part of who I am from that idea, from seeing Dad and how he, and he would say things about how good it is to be weird and things like that. And I remember thinking, every time there's a group working on something, everybody automatically goes to the easiest to think of solution. Somebody should be trying to think of, that's going to always be covered. And at a very young age, I just remember thinking, I need, I'm gonna start with kind of what's the outside and work in, and I'll make sure all the ideas are covered. As a young age, that was, and I know it came from just kind of, again, just the influence of my dad and stuff. And it's still something that, it's something that I know other people, is, and a lot of at work, at home. It's become just kind of a core piece of who I, even when I'm not doing something weird, but just there's a lot of creative problem solving, and I love when I find that thing, now that solution that nobody else thought of and is kind of like outside the box, and all of a sudden it answers all of the different troubles about whatever situation. And yeah, I definitely credit my dad's influence for that. I don't know how much him being a pastor shaped my faith, because there's no comparison. I don't know. Till I was off to college, I had never been in a church where he wasn't not only the preaching pastor, but the only pastor. And so I couldn't compare, but I know that there was consistency between what I heard him say from the pulpit and what I heard him, say in different teaching situations, or giving advice to other people, and how he was in real life and how he led our family. And so I think that, pastor or not, that thing was a big thing, whatever his profession was, and that I think made it allowed my faith to be put on, on very solid ground. Like, this isn't this isn't for show in some situations, and there's times when it's really inconvenient, you bend it a little bit, or or this is someone who's saying this over and over, but I see behind that, I know there are times it's really not practiced, but I had the complete opposite experience with him, and no, that I think is why my faith is, or how God established a really incredibly strong faith and a sincerity of faith. And it wasn't because he was perfect or would say he was perfect, but it was that consistency. The legacy I want is to be effectively out of the way. I want to leave the legacy of the first stage of the rocket that doesn't get a lot of attention, but that's kind of what I think that's the father role in children's own spiritual development and their personal development. And at the beginning, there's no momentum there, and it all comes from the source you're dependent on. And if I do my job right, those 4 kids they're gonna both have momentum and a trajectory. If I've done my job right, it'll be in not just a good direction for people in general, but for them specific. And hopefully along the way, they'll have absorbed a lot of helpful example and teaching and learning. And it's meant to be preparing them to have that stronger connection to Christ, so that Christ can take them much, much farther. And that's my job is just to give them the best opportunity to have that and to transfer as much energy and momentum into that journey as I can in the stage that I'm here for in that way. And then afterwards to be able to enjoy seeing how far they go. So I guess that's an analogy maybe, but that I think is the best way I describe it. A couple of times I've used the analogy of that where the parents are supposed to be an authority so that children can learn how it works to be under authority. And that's just preparing them to be under a better authority. That's the whole point. And hopefully before they do, they both understand a good example of how it works, but also understand that they're under somebody who's imperfect, just like they're imperfect, and they've seen some example of submission to authority also, and gotten a much bigger picture. And the whole point is for them to be prepared to still have value in the relationship, but independence and more dependence on Christ. And that's impossible. We need those steps, and that's what that's what our phase of relationship is. Until and I'll always be their father, and I'll always be looking to help and contribute. But that's the critical part. So that pretty soon I'm a father in the context of their relationship with Christ, where at the very beginning their relationship with Christ is sort of in the context of being a child and a student, and but it's leading up to them being, like I said, on their own and knowing how to understand that and explore that and let Christ lead them instead of us lead them. And so the hike, I don't remember you ever mentioning a large animal on our hiking trip.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Maybe
you did, but I don't remember.
I don't remember. Okay.
Our lives were in danger. I had no idea.
Well, I don't know if necessarily lives in danger. It was kind of more just something that was like, I don't really remember what was going through my head at the time, because for a little bit, I kind of was like, okay, I don't really know what that was. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not what I think it is. So maybe I could just chill out here. And then eventually, I think it kind of just got to be, but what if it is a bear?
Right.
So I don't think, it wasn't a huge deal to me, but I think I just kind of was like, I think I could use the little layer of protection that the tent comes with. So
yeah. Oh yeah. No, that was a lot of fun. And I don't know, did you know that was the first time I had ever done backpacking? Did you know that?
I don't remember if I did or didn't. I think you might have mentioned it. Maybe. But if you did, it definitely wasn't something that I was thinking about.
Yeah, I just remember when we were talking about it, and we're like trying to come up with something. Like I said, with and both Mom and I thought like, oh yeah, Ayden would love to go backpacking. That is right up his alley. So yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm glad. That was a lot of fun.
That also might have been the first time that I went hiking with you at the age that I was then, without Garrett and like occasionally Kieran when he would get distracted being way in the back. So
Right.
do you remember all those like, because we would go on hikes all the time during
Family
then.
hikes were always the same. Yep.
And every single time it was routine. We would all start together and we would all like
You would be
for like 20 minutes maybe 15. You and Mom would be like, we're all sticking together for this one, and then all inevitably like.
Yeah.
I would shoot out. Sometimes it would be Trevor with me. Sometimes it would be Kieran. Like they would kind of switch off. And
Oh yeah, you would
every
always be
time,
way out ahead. And I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but one of your brothers would be laying on the trail, moaning about being tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that was the first time we could unencumbered
Yeah, just boom.
go for it. No, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you should definitely do it again. By the way.
Yeah. No, I'm working on it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it was fun to hear you talk about the woodworking stuff because that's something Grandpa does too.
Yeah.
And that's where I got the bug, and the things we do are kind of different, but same thing. Like I remember like, oh, we got it. We have our TV, but we don't have it. Like, oh well, I'll make a cabinet to put it on. I'm like, oh, that looks like you bought that.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's like
Yeah.
And again, anyway, so that was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool to hear about. Thanks for sharing that.
No, yeah, it's something that I think is really awesome and just really practical. I mean, it makes awesome gifts because I feel like it adds like, I've always loved the idea of like leaning more towards something that like you make yourself rather than just buying something, especially something if it's like, I mean, it doesn't take like a ton of energy for like some stuff, but it makes so much difference. And it's like, you can make it more unique to the person. Like it's really cool, and it's like something that like I feel like a lot of the gifts that I've read, like maybe they haven't turned out the way that like I've wanted them to, but like I've always like felt like it's meant more to me to give it to them too.
Yeah.
Just, like to know like I put time and energy to this because like this person means more to me.
Oh yeah, no, and you've got 20 years to get better at what you're making.
Exactly.
It took me a bit. You haven't seen my early stuff because it got thrown away. So, yeah.
Yeah. What else we got on the docket?
He had asked about the legacy.
That's right. Yeah. I feel like that has always been something that I feel like is like when I think like what does faith look like, especially early ages. It was especially like remembering like seeing you as a pastor for a little bit too. That was really cool to think about when I got older and like actually understood like more of what that meant and like the time that went into that and everything like that. That was really impactful for me because it also kind of like once I understood that, it helps me notice more things about like the way you live your life and the way that like consistently you'd point things back to Christ. Like that was really cool for me, and that would also just make a big deal, like make me think, okay, am I doing that the way that I should? And am I like making sure that like when I do things that I enjoy, like running is something that I feel like I can like just I could talk for hours about why Christ like is in running for me. Like both just in like something I'm passionate about, like something that forces me to get uncomfortable, but it's always worth it. Something that like, I mean, just the amount of time and energy that it goes into and how like but like also it shows like the work that I put in and everything. Like that's something that I can point back to Christ really well now because I like stopped to think about how like, I mean, you would point woodworking back to Christ, you point music back to Christ, like things that like show who you are as a person and how like you're better in certain fields. And you'd always be like, no. This is just because God lets me. Like this is just because like I show Christ through this because that's where it comes from. Like that's something that I definitely have taken from you.
Well, you mentioned running, and I can remember proudly pretty much where I was the moment I realized each one of you guys were faster than me. I remember the first time we were running, we were running together, but it was when you were talking about how your times were in middle school cross country. I'm like, oh, I can't do that anymore. And I'm sure it's going to happen with Garrett. But for all of you guys, it's like, oh yeah, once upon a time. But you've all surpassed me now.
Yeah, I remember playing tag in the backyard and be like, "Oh, Dad's playing. We better climb a tree. That's the only way we're getting away from him for a little bit."
Yeah, and there were definitely times I was trying to hide the fact that I couldn't catch you and try to play. But no, it's when you talk about this, it immediately makes me think of stuff I remember, with Dad, and it's as eye-opening for me as it is maybe for you that's great. That's part of the fun of it all.
Yeah.